Hi everybody, and welcome to another season of South Carolina football and another season of the GoGamecocks.com football preview show. Today we're going to talk about the South Carolina offense, which in 2014 means we're going to talk about how do you replace Connor Shaw. The job falls to Dylan Thompson this year. He's a face that Gamecock fans know. Steve Spurrier knows him, his teammates know him. There's a great level of familiarity. A fifth-year senior who's got, as Steve Spurrier says, one shot to prove whatever he's going to prove as a college football player. I think if you are a fan of Dylan Thompson and a believer in Dylan Thompson, David, you can look at his resume and look at some of the games he's played. I'm thinking specifically in Death Valley when he started for injured Shaw, and back up your argument. I also think if you're skeptical of Dylan Thompson, you can point to some things, Tennessee last year, Missouri last year, to back up your argument. So I think that Dylan Thompson has got a lot of reasons for optimism, but I also don't think he's answered all the questions, and I think Steve Spurrier would admit that. So the question is, if you don't have Dylan, if two questions, I suppose. Can Dylan Thompson handle the load of replacing Connor Shaw, who in many ways may be irreplaceable, and who's behind Dylan Thompson? Should he A, get hurt, or should he B, just not be able to do it?
You know, some real good points there, Josh, and it's obviously Dylan Thompson's team. This team will follow him, but if you're expecting Dylan Thompson to be another Connor Shaw, that's just not going to happen, specifically because of the running ability. Not that Dylan Thompson can't run. We all saw him do it 2 years ago on that 3rd and 19 up at Clemson, but he's not going to be able to get that 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 rushing attempt that Connor Shaw could just do so effortlessly. Right. So when that happens, will they go to a Wildcat package? Will they sub in another quarterback? Your choices here are Connor Mitch, redshirt freshman, who looks to be the clear backup to Dylan Thompson, and then you have a couple of other guys in Perry Orth and true freshman Michael Scarnecchia, who will probably end up redshirting, but he got a lot of reps in preseason camp, and Spurrier really likes him. And then of course you have Brendan Nosovich, a kid who thought about transferring early but then decided to stick around. He's a guy that has the height and the build to really get in that Wildcat formation and get a first down. So Dylan Thompson will start, provided he stays healthy. But after that, during the course of the game, what do they do if South Carolina really needs to pick up a first down and they may have to run to do it? Do you go to Pharaoh Cooper in the Wildcat? Do you trust Mitch or Nosovich? Do you trust Thompson? But Dylan Thompson will be in there under center, and I think it's going to be his show as long as he can stay healthy.
Right. If you're one of these people that thinks Dylan Thompson is going to get the job done, I think another thing you've got going for you is you look around him at what he's got. He's got the two things that are a quarterback's best friend: a really good offensive line, or what should be a really good offensive line, and a great running back. Gamecocks have 4 or 5 offensive linemen coming back. Steve Spurrier has harped on that group's consistency, and I think rightfully so, but I think that they have the potential, and potential is a scary word for any college football coach. They have the potential to be the best offensive line in the SEC. A great running back makes you look better as an offensive line, and I think South Carolina's got a great running back in Mike Davis. He's a guy who we were talking about midseason last year as a kind of a potential Heisman candidate. Injuries kind of nipped that talk in the bud. He's missed a week of camp already this year with a hamstring injury. So he's got to prove he can stay healthy. But if he can be a difference maker, David. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? Mike Davis, and then it's not just Mike Davis because they're going to have to keep him healthy. They got to have other guys roll in there. Right?
Oh, absolutely, Josh. I don't think there's any question that if they really need to grind clock and just run out a win, Mike Davis is going to be the guy that gets the ball. Over 1,100 yards last year, despite really not playing in the final 4 games. He got his touches, but he certainly wasn't at his full capability with that rib problem, the foot and ankle that he just never got healthy. But Mike Davis seems to be able to take the pounding this year. He's going to have to prove that on the field, and that he's going to have to prove that he can get enough touches in this offense, because honestly, what do you even need a passing quarterback for when you have this kind of offensive line and this kind of running back? Well, we all know Steve Spurrier is going to throw the ball, but when he's got to grind out a game, Mike Davis is going to be the guy to get there. And you look behind him, you've got a lot of really sturdy and talented backups, starting with the big man, Brandon Wilds, a guy who can run over you or run through you. He's in the best shape of his life, and I think he's really going to have a strong year. Then you have the speedster of Sean Carson, a guy who really helped win that Florida game last year. year by, breaking up the middle for 50 yards when USC was backed up on its own goal line. And then, of course, you have the best player from the spring in David Williams. He did have a slight knee problem early in camp. That's been corrected now, and he's a guy that if they can find a way to get him on the field consistently, I think he's really going to show what he can do. And those running backs running behind that offensive line, South Carolina, I think, is going to be stout. But as I mentioned before, Steve Spurrier is going to want to throw the ball. Exactly. We all know it, and that puts the focus onto the wide receivers, a very deep and talented group. Josh, who do you think are going to be the best wideouts that come out this year?
Somebody asked me that the other day, and I told them I can never figure out South Carolina's wide receiver situation in the preseason. I get this question every year, and it feels like I have the same answer. I don't know. We go through the preseason stuff, and we are asking all the assistant coaches, who are your guys, who's your rotation, who looks good? And it's always the wide receivers where we don't know until 2 days before the game, and even then, they are going to roll a bunch of guys in and out of there. Shaq Rowland and Pharaoh Cooper are the names that we've heard all preseason and the names we expect to hear. Pharaoh Cooper, I think, is kind of a given almost. They really, really like Pharaoh Cooper. Shaq Rowland is a little bit, for me at least, an X factor. He has made some fantastic plays in the preseason. He's the most talented wide receiver on this roster. Will he be consistent? If he is, he can be an all-SEC type guy. He can follow that line of maybe not Alshon Jeffrey of the Alshon's sophomore year, but of Alshon's junior year, of Bruce Ellington. He can be that kind of guy for this offense, and I think Steve Spurrier, would love to have that kind of guy. The second question that I get about pass catchers, David, that I can never answer is, are they going to throw to the tight ends this year? I'm going to leave that to you.
Well, it is a question, Josh. Obviously, it didn't hurt South Carolina last year to not throw to the tight ends. But really, outside of the last 2 games of the year, the tight ends were mostly in there just to block.
Yeah.
And, you had a couple of guys with Busta Anderson, with Jarrell Adams, who will be playing on Sundays one day. Both of those guys have got the body and the skills to make it in the NFL. Now, last year they played well, but they just didn't get very many targets thrown toward them, at least in the first 10 games. Who knows if that's going to change this year? Busta Anderson's been kind of up and down throughout the preseason with coming off that torn tricep he suffered in the spring. Should be ready to go by the opening game, but we won't know. But Jarrell Adams has been catching everything thrown to him in the practices, in the scrimmages, and I think, if they give him the ball enough, he's really going to show what he can do. Now, it all depends on a couple of things. Will they have those slot receivers like Bruce Ellington who like to go across the middle and be that safety net for Dylan Thompson? Are they going to use these guys as stretch the field receivers? Just what are you going to do with them? But I'm sure that, with all of the options that they have on offense, it's really just like playing with house money. They can go to Dylan Thompson and say, listen, you got the line, you got the backs, you got the guys to catch the ball. We're going to give you enough to win the game. Just don't make a silly decision and lose the game. So we'll have to see how they kind of balance everything in this South Carolina offensive attack. But I'm pretty sure that, they're going to find a way to do it, and this could be the most prolific offense of the Steve Spurrier era, which they did set records for points and touchdowns and yards last year. Maybe they set new ones this year.
Be quite a feat, but after losing Connor Shaw and Bruce Ellington, but they could do it. Join us tomorrow, and we'll talk about the defense.